Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be talking about some champions that throughout the ages of Raid is over 2 years old now, and it has actually changed a lot in the time that I've been playing it since kind of right when it came out up till today. A lot has evolved in the game, so I thought it'd be fun to take a trip down memory lane and talk about champions that weren't necessarily nerfed, but used to be a lot better in the relative scheme of the game compared to where they are now, just because how things have changed in Raid and how it functions as a game. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, I want to touch on 3 champions that I think fall into the same category in this discussion, and that is Royal Guard, Xayah, and Septimus. And the reason being, all of these are max damage, hard-hitting champions that mainly centered around speed farming. So I didn't put Coldheart in that mix because Coldheart has actually seen some improvement recently with Raid, especially now that you can do the custom AI. I've got a video recently that I'll try to remember to link over there about the Reflex set and how Coldheart is insane with that set now. But Coldheart actually gets the turn meter manipulation on her A3, so it's not just extracting value because of the hard-hitting damage. It was definitely awesome, and it was a big part of Heartseeker, but Raid has evolved in a way where you can still get a ton of value out of Coldheart. So I'm sticking to the other 3 that I talked about and leaving Coldheart out of it. So I'll quickly go through them one at a time, but they do kind of fall into the same category. Royal Guard, 90% of what he brought to the table was the A2 here, takedown, mass AoE, enemy max HP, super hard hitting. Now with the release of the new dungeons, 21 to 25, he's still amazing, dungeons 1 through 20, and will be great for speed farming setups on those. But your end game accounts, your top level accounts in Raid, Royal Guard is still going to have a place, but he's just not going to be what he was before. And Septimus falls in that same category. The enemy max HP nuke ability was amazing. I used a double Septimus Spider 20 team to just ravage the Spider, blast it down in 11 seconds. And that still is great for Spider 20, but you have to evolve and do like HP burn strats and do different things now to farm up in those higher levels like Spider 24 and 25, basically anywhere 21 to 25. And Xayah, same thing. Not only did they do the changes for enemy max HP, but also Xayah's Deadly Catalyst used to be a massive detonation. Most notably, probably Dragon and Fire Knight. You could just blow it up for like 75% of its damage if you had a proper team built around it. And it's not going to do that anymore on those later stages, but will still be definitely viable on like Dungeon 20, just not for the end game. So these 3 champions weren't nerfed themselves, but abilities they don't function in the same or at the same quality in the newer releases of dungeons that have come to Raid. And actually, if you're brand new to Raid, you may not remember, but back in the day when I started playing, dungeons used to max out at level 15, so it would stop right here. Then they added all the way down to stage 20, and then recently they added down to stage 25. So they've added 10 levels to these dungeons that used to max out at level 15 when I started playing. And now I want to transition into the general discussion where I go through some champions that used to be really, really good and have kind of fallen off the map as the game has evolved. And I want to start with Zargala. Zargala used to be incredible because defense break was not super common, and she had a triple hitter big version of defense break right here on this crack armor ability. But unfortunately, it's a 4-turn cooldown. If it was a 3-turn cooldown, I would say she's still pretty viable. But a 4-turn AoE defense break has kind of been power creeped. There's just so many 3-turn AoE defense breaks. And then with the rest of her kit, her multipliers aren't that great. So for her to actually activate the crack armor, she doesn't get anything else out of her A2. It's just attack one enemy. It does hit decently hard, and it's on a 2-turn cooldown, but that has been pretty much power creeped out. And the A1, you are getting weakened, but it's not a consistent chance, and the books don't buff that chance at all. So Zargala has been a little bit of a victim of some of the aging and changing of Raid. Then kind of in that same sentiment is Tayrel, because He does have an AoE defense break, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. We don't get that 3-turn cooldown now. I think Tayrell is better than Zargala. Like, for a new account, if I were doing a free-to-play series or something, I would rather summon Tayrell than Zargala. So Tayrell is definitely still good. He's just not like the god tier, S tier champion that he used to be. Back when I started playing Raid, everybody was praying that they pull a Tayrell. He was absolutely incredible. The A1 attack break has also been kind of power keeped a little bit. There's a lot more champions that do that. But Tayrell used to fill an amazing role, scaling with defense, doing turn meter reduction, AoE defense break, and then the A1 big version of attack debuffing with the all battle defense aura. So he is still definitely a very good champ. He's just not the god tier that he used to be, because there's been a lot more good options added to the game. Stag Knight, Ugo, Diak, I could go on and on. Amazing epics that have come out since back in the day when Tayrell was one of the most sought after champions in the game. And a lot of you may not know this, but back in the day, a lot of people thought Nezana was an S tier epic, and now she's really viewed as a subpar epic. But the reason being, attack all enemy AoE default A1s there was not near as many champions that do it. So that was actually a pretty cool ability to have in your A1 to pair with the stun set and type of getting, you know, value out of the AoE suppression a stun set can bring when you pair it with Fearsome Presence. But now there's a lot more AoE A1s. And then there was nowhere near the amount of shielding and ally protection. They've really bumped up the number of champions that provide shield, which I think is a good thing. I think it was way too rare. Kind of like counterattack, how there's only Skull Crusher, Martyr, Valkyrie. That's a really underperformed or underfilled role. Shielding used to be like that, but they've added a decent amount of them. So the value of Nezana's 3-turn booked shield and the ally protection has kind of phased out a little bit. And then the AoE decrease attack with another AoE and a 3-turn cooldown to pair with the stun set. So Nezana used to be a really good epic, but she has kind of been phased out. And of course, I've got to put our good old boy Relic Keeper, who is one of the progress mission fusion things that you have to do. I actually had a video back in the day talking about how, like, oh, Relic Keeper, you should go for him. He can really snowball, hit super hard, get extra turns with his A1, help you make progress in the campaign. He'll buff his own attack with not only the aura, but also the ability that he brings here that grants an extra turn. So you can really snowball his main stat, make him go ridiculously often with snowballing extra turns and hitting super hard. And that was half true. I mean, I was probably overselling him a little bit, or maybe a little bit too excited about how much I thought I was going to get in terms of building Relic Keeper. But he used to be a lot better back then than he is now. The reality is he's way too slow because he has to run forward and do that A1 and come back and run forward, extra turn, and do that A1. Septimus does kind of the same thing with the A1 that grants an extra turn, but Septimus has way faster animations. Relic Keeper's like half the speed of Septimus in terms of clearing content and farming in the campaign. So anyway, yeah, my current opinion on Relic Keeper is he should mainly just be done as kind of some progress for those missions, and especially investing all the books he takes. I think it's 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8 epic books. I'd probably save those epic books for a more current champion that can really help you progress, something like a Stag Knight, Miscreated Monster, something like that. One of these newer epics, when you're able to acquire them. I don't know that he's going to be worth the, I don't know if you're going to get a good return on that 8 epic book investment on Relic Keeper. And now, believe it or not, you're gonna call me crazy, but I want to talk about Kale for a little bit. Kale, I do believe, is still the choice. Like, if I were gonna make a 2021 beginner's guide and I were gonna have the discussion about who should beginners pick as their starting champion, I would still probably say Kale. But the thing is, it's not the obvious, just absolute 100% no other option choice that it used to be. The reason being, in my opinion, is because they've added so many poisoners to the game. Since back in the day, when I was starting the game, they've added Frozen Banshee, just champions that really are more accessible, being rares. I'm not even talking about like legendaries and stuff. I'm talking about rares that place poison. You're going to have options available to you that you didn't have back in the day. So I do think Kale is the optimal choice, but it's a lot closer than it used to be, and I could at least be persuaded to listen to an argument about Elaine, because Elaine does have the 2 different AoE abilities here, so you're going to get a lot of value, be able to get some good sustain out of the lifesteal set, which a lot of those early game accounts are going to be wearing lifesteal on their starting champion, and she's got the 2 different AoE abilities to get a lot of value. And actually, believe it or not, back in the day, Aethel was the optimal choice in the early days of Raid, because she had an A1 that was a triple hitter that placed Weaken. So there was no War Master. Like, if you wanted to do good damage in the clan boss, you had to get Giant Slayer, and you had to have triple hitters on your default ability. Aethel had a triple hit A1 to pair well with Giant Slayer, and Weaken used to make poisons hit harder. So Aethel had like the god tier of the god tier for an A1, and she was a starting champion. So everybody said, if you want to do well for your clan, pick Aethel as your starter and start cranking out the Giant Slayer, Weaken, harder poison ticks damage for your clan. So they did change that relatively soon, and then the clear and obvious choice became Kale. And like I said, I do still think he's the optimal choice. I'm not going to go crazy here, but I think it's a lot closer than it used to be. And I also want to quickly talk about everybody's new account, Darwing War Maiden. Everybody always says when you make a new account, you dive into Stage 9 and farm up a War Maiden. Because here in Stage 9, you can see that once you get the War Maiden, you can also farm up the duplicate drops, and then you get the Ascended skill here of the big version, 100%, 3-turn cooldown, AoE defense break. And similar to Kale, I do still recommend doing that. I think it's probably still good to get yourself a War Maiden, but for people that are going to be mid spenders maybe, or definitely high spenders, it's not going to bring near the value it used to, because like I talked about a little bit earlier with like Zargala and Tyrell, AoE defense break is way more common in the game than it used to be. So War Maiden is definitely taking a step back with these new shifts and how Raid has gone over the last year or two. And believe it or not, I actually want to talk about Venus a little bit. Now, Venus is still a very good general utility champion. But the thing is, in that similar point that I was making, the AoE defense break and weaken is nowhere near as impactful as it used to be. Venus, not a great damage dealer, isn't going to hit super hard. Now, is she still a great champion to summon for early and mid-account progression? Absolutely. But my only point is she's not like the god tier summon that she used to be. There's been better legendaries released to the game than Venus, and there's been other options. There's more prevalence of unkillable comps. So champions like Fane that have come out that are an epic, that aren't a void legendary. They're going to help you kind of slot in to that role in the game where you're placing these 2 debuffs. So definitely still a very good summon for early and mid-game accounts, but Venus is nowhere near the prized goddess that she was back when I started the game. Now, I could probably go on and do 25 more champions that have changed, in my opinion, but when I sat down to plan this video, these were the ones that kind of first came to my mind and wanted to have a discussion about in this video. But I would love to hear what you have to think. What champions do you disagree with me on? What champions do you think should have been on this list that I left off? I really enjoy reading through the comment sections, especially on videos like this, where you're making a list about how something has changed. I would love to hear your perspective if you take the time to share it down in the comment section. So that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.